Welcome back to my channel, boys. This is my 8 steps on how to better a bass fishing tournament in the spring, how to win a bass fishing tournament in the spring. So I have all 8 steps laid out in front of me, as you guys can see, because I'm using my phone to record. I'm not rich yet. I don't make money off this yet, so subscribe down below if you guys really like this video at the end. Also, comment down below on what you think I should add. I'll be doing a multiple part series throughout this. This is just my tips and tricks. We'll be doing how to read nautical maps. It's a bunch of other things for bass fishing, and we'll get to hunting later in the year. We're gonna be doing some food plot stuff starting in May. We're gonna finish that off through August and stuff. And then we'll get to hunting in July for all you hunters, especially white-tailed deer hunters. Anyways, first off, we have follow warm weather trends. So in the spring, it's cold out a lot, especially early spring. You can't really tell where the bass are going, especially if you're a beginner. So follow the weather trends, especially the water weather trends, like the water temps and stuff. Don't follow the calendar. So the calendar at this point in time does not matter. I mean, once you hit May and stuff, it's more about the water temps, but not the calendar. So what we want to focus on is bass move in warmer temps. So what that means is that they start spawning, they start eating a lot more when it's a little bit colder out, especially even a 1 to 2 degree difference in the water temp. We're gonna be talking about a lot of water temp in this video. That can make a big difference. So like, let's say it's like 58 degrees, bass could be sluggish in the morning. Let's say during the day it's like 65 air temp, and then at night the bass, it's like 60-degree water temp. They're gonna start feeding a lot more. You're probably gonna be using a little bit more a little bit more finesse baits like Ned rigs and your Texas rigs. So after a cold front, bass will go deeper a little bit into the water, more like a drop off or something. They'll still, especially if it's been warm over 60-degree water temp a little bit before. If it's just a small cold front coming in, they're gonna stick a little bit closer to that shallow water, like 5 feet and up. But when that cold front hits, they will go a little bit deeper, trying to find a little bit more food, trying to stay a little warmer in that warmer water. So they'll probably go 5 to 15, maybe 20 feet, depends on how bad this cold front is. I'm gonna give you guys for each of these a tournament trick. I'm gonna call them tourney tricks because that sounds better. Don't abandon an area, just change your depth. So you might not be finding bass in the 5 feet of water if it's still early, but check that same area, just check a little bit deeper of that area. All right, guys, our next trick we have for number 2 is spring. There are 3 phases, basically. Like I said, these are all water temps. So for early spring, it should be about 40s to low 50s or so. So the bass are gonna be slow. That's just straight out, the bass are gonna be slow. It's still somewhat ice fishing, not on ice. They're just still gonna be in that ice fishing range, so to say. So they're still gonna be slow, sluggish a lot. Try suspending jerk baits. Those will work well. Hair jigs, Ned rigs will work, especially on the bottom. They're gonna be lower, so closer to the bottom, to try to find that warmer water. And then you're also gonna want flat crankbaits. I will post some of these, a picture on the video, just to help you guys out, especially for your newcomers. If you guys are newcomers to bass fishing tournaments and just bass fishing in general, really this video is just bass fishing basically, but it is specifically tournaments. I will be doing another video, do just bass fishing, just to help everybody try to get out on the water, especially for first timer. But for our phase 2, we have the pre-spawn, which is your 50s to 60 range. Not above 60 because that's spawn, but your 50 degree to 60 degree. The females will be feeding at this point. They're trying to fatten up, trying to get enough energy to start laying eggs. And they're going to have a fat belly at this point, so they're going to start fattening up. Those are the fish in tournaments you want to catch. You can't really try to catch these. It just happens. I mean, you can't just go for a male, go for a female. That's not how it works in bass fishing. Also, for these, you want to try spinner baits or chatter baits. These are moving baits. They're not Yeah, they're just moving baits. So this is the time when you want to get that in, your square bills and your Texas rig. This is where you're going to be wanting to start moving up. You're going to want to start moving up in that water level. Start going 10 feet and more. They're going to start trying to make their beds. They're not going to start spawning yet, but the females are probably going to be a little closer to shore. You professionals help me out on this, but they're going to be closer to shore, starting to make their beds, getting ready for the spawning season. And then for 3, you have, of course, your spawning. So this is 6 degrees and up in your early spring. We'll get into summer later, but usually it stays in between that 60 and 70 degree water temp range, especially your late May and early June. Even beginning of May, depends on where you live in the Midwest. Yeah, this is basically just for Midwest, but like I said, this is bass fishing, so it can apply to anywhere. Yeah, in the spawn, this is your best time to catch a fish. If you're in this area watching this video, congratulations. You have just found the best time to catch a bass fish, or a bass, in my opinion. This is where you want to start going into that 5 foot of water or less. This is where you're going to want to start finding beds, finding that warmer water part of the lake. I'm going to talk about that briefly later. That's going to be more for nautical and stuff, water temp type stuff. So for this, you're going to be wanting Texas rig, some just more soft plastics, not a lot of moving bait, but more, you're going to want to focus on beds. You want to try to find those beds, and you're going to fish those. That's where you want to just get the fish all angry, because you're going to be getting in their bed. They're very protective fish. They're aggressive fish. So if you get on those beds and you don't see a fish exactly on the bed, still fish that bed. There might be a fish nearby, but you want to get it up close as you can to that bed without your boat getting too close, or without getting too close to the water. Especially if you're on shore and you're fishing, fish can see out of water. So you're going to want to stay as far away as you can without them seeing, but able to get jig or whatever you're using into there. And your tourney trick for this is catch your limit fast, and then focus on your bigger fish later. So what that means is you want to catch, usually it's 5 fish. It depends on the tournament, so check in on those rules. But catch your limit fast, even if it's just a little 1.5 pounds, as long as they're legal, count them. You want 5 fish first. That's your biggest priority when bass fishing tournament. Not always does this happen. I know rarely ever happens to me that I catch 5 fish, but that's just Michigan. That's what happens sometimes in Michigan. Not everything is the best, but yeah, that's where you're going to be wanting to focus on those areas. Now we're going to get on to point number 3, which is wind is your friend. So wind pushes bait closer to shore. Wherever the wind is pushing, that's where the bait are going. And that's where the bass will follow these bait, because they're aggressive fish. They want to eat, especially in a little bit warmer water like we were talking about. So fish where the wind is going, because that's usually where the bass are. Now don't fish like open lake. Like you're in the middle of the lake, it's 50, 60 feet deep, and the wind is going north. Don't fish right there. That's not where you're going to usually catch bass. I would be very shocked if you catch a lot of bass in that area, especially when it's spawning season. But stick to the bank. Go where the wind is going. So if it's going north, hit that north face of the lake. So we'll get more into that in our nautical maps stuff. But windy banks, like I said, are usually better than calm banks. This moves bait around. So that's what it's doing, is moving the bait around that area. The bait are kicking up dirt. The bass are watching them, and then they come up and then they eat them and stuff. So you want to toss moving baits in this area as much as possible to mimic a bait fish. And then your tourney trick for this is calm water. You want to use a more finesse bait, like a Texas rig or something. If you have windy water, then you want to use a power or a strong moving bait, like a chatterbait, a spinnerbait, or so. Next we have is dirty water versus clear water. You need to adjust to these two. These are going to be very important for this type of fishing. So for dirty water, you want darker color baits. It's not what you would expect. You would expect lighter color baits, but you want darker color baits in dirtier water. That's just how it works. I don't know how. Such would be black or blue, or even chard or charuser or whatever. Those color baits, you can find those at Bass Pro. You can ask somebody to help you out for a darker color bait. Because the fish can't see, you also want vibrating baits. So this would be your chatterbait, your spinner bait sometimes, etc. Yeah, your chatterdonk and stuff. So this is what you're going to be wanting to use, especially in dirty water. Fish can't see well in dirty water, of course, obviously, but that's why you want to be using vibrating baits. And then you want to stay shallow because that's where the fish are going to seek cover. You want to find fish cover like a sunken tree log or whatever, maybe some weeds or something, especially last year's weeds, especially in the spring. There's not going to be a lot of cover. So focus on those areas for dirtier water. Then clear water, you want natural colors. So like your more shiny white for shad or something. It depends on where you're fishing. Bluegill color, I like using the watermelon, but look for more natural, brighter, as they say, colors. That's what you're going to be wanting to use. Also, downsize your baits. As these bass can see a little bit clearer in these clear waters, use a little bit smaller baits. They're still going to eat them. You don't need the biggest bait that you have to toss out. You don't need some pike bait to catch a bass. That's not always the best, especially in tournaments. You want to just be catching a lot of fish, especially earlier on, like we said. And then longer casts you want for your clear water and quieter presentation because the fish are going to be able to see you. You're going to be able to see them. So longer casts away from your boat, away from the dock or shore, or wherever you're fishing is key. And then your turning trick for this is don't use finesse rigs in dirty water. Just add a soft plastic, like dark blue or whatever, like we said, to your moving bait. That's probably going to be your best bet for darker water. Number 5, we have our key areas to start, especially in the Midwest. Your spring spots will probably most likely be your secondary points near spawning flats. I will talk more about that in my nautical map video. And then you also want creek channel edges. So those are 3 different things you want to do. Your creeks, if you have channels like around me, there's Gun Lake, there's a lot of channels. Fish those. That's where you're going to want to be fishing most. And then also like edges of a pond where there's points and stuff. We'll talk about that more, like I said, in our nautical video. But the creeks, you want the creek mouth. So you're not going to be wanting to go in the creek. You could if you have a boat that can do that, but most creeks aren't that big. Be using a lot of moving baits for this area, especially because you're trying to mimic all those bait trying to move around and getting out of there. There's going to be a lot of bass around those areas. And then you also want inside weed edges. Typically, they're a little bit more shallow. We'll talk about that more later on in a different video. This is just an overview, like I said. And also riprap banks near deep water. So I'll post a picture above right here. And then also docks with dark bottoms. So it's either a dock with like something dark that's underneath, or especially you want to do deeper docks. So like when they're like 10 feet or something, fish those spots first, especially in earlier spring with your pre-spawn. The turning trick for this is if you get one bite, stay there. There's a good possibility that you have more bites coming, that there's more fish there. Usually at this point in time, bass are trying to like pool up. If you find one bass, normally there's a couple more. So stick with those spots. If you get a bite, just keep fishing that spot, maybe find 5-10 minutes. It depends on how long your tournament is. If it's an all-day thing, fish there for an hour or so until you stop catching fish. Or, yeah. But if it's like a half day where I do like 8 to 12, stay there for no more than 20 minutes if you're not getting a bite. And then especially on a bigger lake that you have other spots you want to hit, just move on. And you can always come back to this later. Step number 6, we have your tackle setup for winning spring tournaments. So for your rod, you want a medium to medium heavy rod, especially with these bass. You want to be hook setting them pretty well if you don't have a circle hook. So normally hook sets are easier with a medium to medium heavy rod. That's just what I've learned. Some other people might tell me otherwise. Let me know down in the comments if you can. For your line, you want to use fluoro, and you want to use about 10 to 15 pound, especially if you're going to possibly catch a bigger fish. 10 to 15 is a good range for able to have that water sensitivity on your line so that you can feel it in your rod. 10 to 12 is my range that I like, but 10 to 15 is also good. 15 is good. Maybe even 8, that's good as well. And then here are some baits that you always want to have tied on or on standby, especially if you're a younger guy, you don't have a lot of money. This is probably your first or second, maybe third tournament. You don't need 10 different rods. but a lot of these professionals do that so that they have a different bait set up for where they are. There's just a lot more science going on behind. Just some good baits to have on already or on standby is your jerk bait, chatterbait, Ned rig, Texas rig soft plastic, and your square bill crank. So with all these, just make sure you have them on standby, especially before the tournament. And once you get on the water, you can determine by what we said earlier and previously what you want to have on, and especially like with your dirty water, your clean water, all that stuff. Your tourney trick for this is first timers. Like I said, use what you have. This is not a game changer. This is not going to set your life. So this is probably for your first timers just more fun. This is not your lifestyle. This is not what you do on a daily basis. So yeah, just start with what you have, or if you don't have anything, just start small. Just go to Cabela's and spend max of like $300 on stuff. So I would recommend getting 1 to 2 rods with 2 reels, of course. Spinning would probably be your best bet. Don't use a bait caster yet, and the click button ones I don't like. So get a bunch of bait. Try to find somebody with a boat, especially even if you've done it 10 times. Just try to find somebody you know with a boat that they could take you. Normally with bass fishing tournaments, you cannot drive the boat. You have to have a driver specifically just for driving. He can't fish or anything. So just find somebody with a boat. Shouldn't be that hard, especially for all you country boys out there as well. For step number 7, we have small decisions that can add pounds. Basically, smaller decisions that have more bigger fish. So fish are slower than you think in under 55-degree water. So just when you're casting and stuff, even if it's a moving bait, just slow it down a little bit. You don't always need to be a fast guy out there. You're not the hare, man. This is a tortoise versus a hare type stuff in that 55 or below. Be the tortoise. He always wins. And then if you have time, go and refish good areas that you found during the day or when you pre-fished. We'll talk about that in a second. But keep track of which side of the lake warms first. Especially in your pre-spawn, you want to be focusing on this. It's usually the northern side, I believe. You might have to double check me on that. But yeah, keep track of that, because if you have a warmer spot and it's like 62 degrees on, like, let's say the northwest side, but your southeast side, that's still about 56 degrees. The bass, a lot of them are going to be on that northwest side because they're going to be trying to spawn and stuff. So fish and make sure that you keep track of those warmer spots. Don't chase fish everywhere. Stick to a pattern. If you see one fish, don't just go off and chase that one. If you see like a bunch of little fish over here, especially if those are bluegill, you probably have some bass that are around trying to eat them. So just keep track of that. Don't chase fish. Just stick to a pattern. And your turning trick for this is, even though it's a race, it's a patience game. Even though it's a tournament, you probably think that you don't have that much time, but 4 hours for fishing may not be a lot, but it's a patience game. So you're not going to be catching fish left and right. Probably going to catch maybe just 3 fish, and you're probably only going to be counting 1 because 1 meets the regulation. So it's a patience game. To up those chances, pre-fish, just find good spots if you're allowed to. Make sure to check the rules for your tournaments just to make sure that you are allowed to do this type of stuff. And finally, we have our number 8. So number 8 is pre-game is key. So you want to look at nautical maps to understand the lake. I will be posting, like I said, later a video about that. But if you're allowed to, like I said, pre-fish if you can. Pre-fish multiple times. You don't want to just do it once because the bass, that might just be a good day. You might just be having a bad day. One spot could be good that day, and then you pre-fish again, or you go there the tournament day, and it sucks. So just pre-fish if you can, like 2 to 3 times within like the 2 weeks prior. Especially with the week prior, try to fish on the days that are going to be the same temperatures as the tournament day. That's when you're going to be able to find those spots that fish are going to be in the same amount or same water temp. So you can also refer back to our cold fronts and stuff for that. And prepare and pack your boat beforehand. So you don't want to be doing that the day of because you're going to be all stressed out in the morning. You probably have to leave at like 4:30 a.m. You don't want to have to get up an extra hour early and figure out, oh, wait, I have a lot more stuff that I have to pack that I did not do yet. So just pack ahead of time. check nautical maps ahead of time. Just make sure you know where you want to go once you're out on the water. Don't wait until you're out on the water and be like, oh, I want to go here. This seems like a good spot. So just know where you want to go is key. Like I just said, your tournament trick for this is you'll want to have a good time and you want to focus on fishing. So pregame is important and because it allows you to fish instead of stress and worry about where you're going to fish on the day of. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, that'll be it for today's video. Thank you for sticking to the end. I hope you learned a lot from this. Please comment down below what you thought of the video. Maybe something I missed, maybe something I made a mistake on. I respond to every single comment. I'm a small content creator, so I have time to do that stuff. But yeah, just let me know what you thought. Give this video a like if you found it interesting or you learned something from it, and subscribe because I have a lot more videos that I'm hoping to come out very soon, and this year is going to be a big year for all my videos. So let me know what you thought. Like I said, I apologize for my grammar and my just stopping and whatever. I'm not very good at this video stuff yet. We're gonna get better though. This is only my 4th video coming out. I do a lot of shorts, but as you can tell, I'm not very good at talking and I repeat myself a lot, so I apologize for that. Please bear with me. We're still learning, we're still getting there. So yeah, just thank y'all for sticking to the end. I hope you found this interesting, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. I'm also sorry for where I'm looking. I'm on an iPhone right now. I do not look at you guys. I do not see the little camera right here. I'm just watching myself because that's, I don't know, it's weird, but that's what I do, and I am sorry. I will work on that. So thank you guys again. So anyways, of the lake. And finally, boys, we have our number